Hi, everyone. So, welcome to this weekly healing call. We're back to the topic of fear, and I just wanted to address it again because the last time I made a video on fear, I said it's not something that we obviously can deal with in a very short time, but it's also such a prevalent emotion right now because we are afraid maybe of the future, of what will happen to our livelihoods, how are we going to pay our bills, or how are we going to go forward as society because we don't know what is happening in the future. So fear is mostly related to future, right? Because we're not afraid of the past, it's already there. In the present moment, if something terrible happens, we're usually not feeling fear at this point until the mind switches on. So fear is mostly a thing of our imagination. It's a creation of our mind. Fear, I don't know, maybe it's new, maybe it's obvious, but fear is a creation of our mind. Fear is actually an imagination. Fear is always imaginary. As soon as you get something that you value, that you treasure, you start being afraid. What will happen if I lose it? If you have children, you fear for your children's safety. It's natural. If you have someone you love, you're afraid that, oh, what will happen if it ends? So fear paralyzes the enjoyment of the moment. Or let's say you're in a relationship and you have deep feelings, and then fear comes in and says, well, what if it ends? What am I going to do? Is this relationship worth it? Or I'm attracted to someone, but I look at them and think, oh no, this is probably not going to work out because this and this and this and this is different. And so it's better not to start it at all. But underneath these logical reasonings can be a thing as simple as fear. I'm afraid. What am I afraid of? I'm afraid I won't make it. I'm afraid I'll lose it. I am afraid I won't be able to keep it. And essentially, that is maybe the underlying concept under all our fears. I'm afraid I won't be able to keep it. So fear is based on this desire to cling and grasp and hold on to. And I think in soul connections, especially, many of you, I think, know that, are familiar with this fear, especially men in soul relationships. I'm talking twin flames, soul connections. Especially men are often terrified, absolutely terrified. Well, no, no, it's too scary. Or we are afraid to tell them how we feel, or we are afraid to put our foot down because we better settle for the crumbs from the table. But what if I tell him and he leaves me, right? What if I say, no, I don't want to settle for the crumbs from the table. I love you and I want to have a relationship with you. Well, that's a surefire way of sending the guy running. Now, the problem is that holding on to crumbs from the table is dysfunctional anyway. It's not leading anywhere. It's keeping the relationship stuck. But it's scary, right? It's easy to talk about it, but it's really scary to say, well, I want more. And then in soul relationships, ultimatums never work either. So if you tell your soul connection, I want more, it's choose either this or that. Choose if you want to have a relationship with me or walk away. What's going to happen? The person will walk away because ultimatums don't really work. So it's a tricky ride, but the root is fear. So we can focus on our own fears rather than the fear of the other person, because we can't really change anyone except ourselves. The world is a reflection of us, but the only one we can change is ourselves, really. and then we leave the world to its own devices. It will never be problem-free. But if I were to think, well, what am I afraid of? Let's just go into this space for a moment and bring up our fears honestly in front of ourselves. What am I afraid of? Am I afraid of being poor? Am I afraid of never making it in life? Am I afraid of being alone for the rest of my life? Am I afraid that I will spend my old age alone without anyone by my side? Am I afraid that my children are going to get in trouble and I won't be able to help them? Am I afraid that I will never be with that person? Am I afraid that no one will ever find me lovable and attractive? And as time goes by, the chances of that are ever less. So bring up those fears in front of you. They can be silly fears. I'm afraid I'll crash my car every time I drive. We won't try to analyze them or go into the psychology of where they started and who originated them. But we'll just go into the space where we address those fears. We bring them up for clearing. So as you go into the space, you can close your eyes and also focus on your solar plexus area between the chest and the belly, that space in the middle of the body. This is often where we store our fears, where our body reacts instinctively to fears coming up. Fears are in our imagination always, but they are products of previous hurts that turned into blocks. That obscure our vision, our clarity. And as we live in fear, we create more and more of the thing that we are afraid of. So we can go in the opposite direction. We can ask ourselves, what do I want to stop creating? What do I absolutely have to stop creating? And this will show very often the greatest fear, be it poverty or loneliness or rejection. So nail it down to one fear, the one that hurts the most, the one that creates the most reaction, the biggest response, the sensation, the heaviness, almost like a punch in the stomach. Connect to that fear, to that sensation in the solar plexus. And let's sink into it. This is just an exercise. But whether in exercise or in real life, fear is the story, it's the imagination. So as you're facing that story, start playing it. Turn it into a movie. Watch the clip that this fear shows you. What is the end result? How does it unfold? Watch it. rejection, loss. Feel that energy building up. And let us now start moving the energy that you feel in your solar plexus. Let's start moving it into the heart, just up the chest, making a conscious effort. You feel that energy generated by the story, by running through the worst case scenario. Let's move it up. We're just moving it up. We're moving this movie up the chest and into the heart space, the energetic heart in the center of the chest. Making a conscious effort, just move that up. And let's ask the high beings to clear the blocks. As you move the energy up, remember that this is the story that runs in your mind. This is a movie. It's not real. Even if something happens over and over again, there is no law that says it will happen again. But the story has a power and it takes up our energy. So feel what happens as you consciously, it may take some effort moving it up, so focus on it. And focus on literally moving that energy up into the heart space. And see the heart as a green ball. So we're moving into an energetic heart. See the heart as a green ball. You will notice that it works by a burst of energy. It's as if the heart lights up. It's almost like a light bulb switches on in that green heart space. You will notice that the energy has moved. And notice what it does to your body, to your energy. Just a short, quick exercise. Just move it up. And keep pushing that energy up into the heart space. If breathing helps, focus on the in-breath. You're pushing the energy up on the in-breath. Fear is imaginary, but it is closely tied to our egos, to our self-identification. Notice that moment where everything becomes blank. If you feel the energy moving and if you feel it dissolving into the heart, notice that space of grasping, or that little step when the mind switches on again and says, oh, wait a minute. And now what? What's going to happen? What is going on? What am I going to do without that fear? Where am I supposed to go? Oh, do you think this is so easy? You can just move your fears up into the heart. You think this will disappear, and on and on. And the story goes, and the mind will try to regain the ground because it's very difficult to detach ourselves from the story. But notice if you had even 3 seconds of that neutral space, the space of neutrality, where you were in your heart space, there was nothing there. Neither good nor bad, just presence, just being in the now. But let's try now to rewrite that story. What is the best that could happen? If you are afraid to crash your car, see yourself arriving in your destination, at your destination safely. Or if you are afraid being alone for the rest of your life, see yourself happy with a partner who appreciates both your darkness and your light, who accepts you for who you are, who gives you as much space or as much communication as you want. He doesn't have to be, or she doesn't have to be like your previous partners, like your parents. You don't even know how good it can be being with someone. But imagine happiness. If you're able, see yourself happy and smiling, embracing, hugging, being with a person. Feel how the energy now starts circulating more around the heart, that it's moving from the solar plexus up by itself as you run through that best case scenario, but run through it more. Feel good, feel happy, feel accomplished, feel peaceful. See that picture and draw it with feelings. Allow yourself to feel happy. Sometimes we are so obsessed with our fears, we don't even know what happiness is anymore. There is always that little person that is looking for the flaw in everything. Oh, this is that, this is that. And the truth is, it's really avoiding going deeper into the self, avoiding going within. So the very wounded ego starts projecting outwards. Everything is wrong. It's my parents' fault, it's my lover's fault, it's my boss's fault, it's the country's fault, the roads, the food, the water, the environment, the doctors, the healers, the neighbors, and it never ends. But see yourself happy, feel how the energy changes. So what is the best case scenario? Rather than being poor or miserable, you're happy, sitting by the beach, sipping cocktails, or whatever it is happiness looks like, or sitting on top of the mountain in complete peace to remember what it feels like. And the mind may start playing tricks, saying, oh, that's too simple. It doesn't work like that. It will all revert back to normal as soon as we finish this exercise, and you will be anxious again. Well, yes, if you only do it once, of course your energy will revert back to normal. If you've been doing something for 40 years, you can't just change the pattern by wishful thinking for 10 minutes. But if you start shifting the energy consciously over and over again, going deeper and deeper, then it will change. But we have to retrain our minds. And that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Let's ask the spirit, the high beings, to clear out all the layers of our energy field, clear the solar plexus chakra with violet flame. Just bring in violet flame into the solar plexus area. And let's ask to clear it completely. Violet flame is a flame like purple violet in color. It is neither hot nor cold. Depending on how energy sensitive you are, you may feel it as a burning sensation and allow it to do its work. And let's bring in violet flame all around our body. Just literally imagine yourself surrounded by violet flame. And just allow. Focus the mind on that violet flame. When you feel you're ready, you can gradually open your eyes and come out. And that energy will keep working for a while. It will go where it needs to and will stop when the work is done. Now, when I talk about minds creating stories, it may sound on one hand that our mind is our worst enemy. It is true to an extent, but also we need our minds. Our minds are a very useful tool. They help us analyze, they help us access information critically, filter out the best from many choices. The problem is that our minds are limited. We can never outthink the universe. So at a certain point, when our vibration goes up, and you can see it as a ladder, so going from, the mere survival and hard work and just living for surviving and working, basically, then going up and up as we learn to take more responsibility, as we learn to lead others, as we develop intellectually, whether it's all in one lifetime or over the course of several lifetimes. Eventually we get up to the heart space where we become more intuitive. We start relying more on our intuition. There is a greater sense of oneness in the world. We live more out from the heart. More synchronicities are available to us, and we become more responsive, more susceptible also to energetic influences. So our energy fields become wider and more open. We connect more fully with our soul group. So there can be also emotional ups and downs. But as we go more fully into the heart space, the mind struggles to catch on. And at this point, the first step is actually trying to amass as much information as possible. People go reading and studying and reading websites, finding all kinds of possible information, knowledge. And then eventually, as the vibration goes even further up, getting really into the heart space, the inner love awakening, knowledge becomes uninteresting. Some of you may have noticed that maybe a few years ago you were reading all the spiritual websites, learning about chakras, about different kinds of teachings, reading books. And then you found a spiritual practice or a teaching that you were comfortable with, and you just started practicing. So an hour of meditation, for example, or chanting now does more for you than reading 500 books. Books they're still useful, but you're learning to access information directly. You're connecting more and more fully with your own teacher. So to go into that stage from, the first pre-awakening and into the actual heart-centered living and heart awakening, we need to accept the limitations of the mind and say, okay, the mind is a useful tool, but it is no longer everything. There are other ways of receiving information. The heart is actually the tool of filtering information. The heart actually has a ray, like a scanner, that goes out and scans people's energy field, scans everything, as a matter of fact. So the more we develop this ray, the better psychics we become, the better we are at reading energy fields and energetic information. And this comes with practice as well. But it's not the mind. The mind, again, may be a useful tool because before you were learning information, so now you know what these signals mean, but it is the heart that starts interpreting it. So the step of going higher in vibration and actually awakening to inner love is a step where you realize the limitations of the mind. And as you go higher up, fear subsides, it becomes less and less prominent. And you can see it gradually as a tool of the mind as well. So fear is a product, not a tool, it's a product of the mind. And it's natural, the mind needs something to work on. So give it something positive to work on, rewrite or reinvent the worst case scenario into the best case scenario. They're just as good because none of them are real. It's not happened. It may happen, it may not. It doesn't matter. It's a creation of your mind. The problem is our intentions can be very powerful, and we may often create reality based on our fears. So rewriting the scenario, turning the worst case into the best case, it's not wishful thinking. It's just giving the mind something to work on. Wishful thinking is if everything is horrible and you're stuck in an abusive relationship and you keep telling yourself, oh, it's going to get better. Oh, he's going to fall in love with me anyway. That is wishful thinking, when all the facts are telling you you should put your foot down and say, no, enough is enough, it's not working out. Let's go our separate ways. I'm not afraid of being alone because I really don't know what tomorrow brings, but come what may. That is wishful thinking. Rewriting the worst case scenario of I'd rather be stuck in an abusive relationship rather than living on my own because I'm afraid of loneliness. Rewriting that scenario was I will live happily with a man who loves me like I deserve. That is rewriting. That is not wishful thinking. So allow yourself to rewrite those fear scenarios. And I'm telling this to myself as much as to anyone who may be listening, because we're all fall prey to those scenarios. It's normal. That's how the mind works. But turning the best case potential into the turning the worst case potential into the best case potential actually liberates and creates more energy. We often have power to manifest our fears. But rather than engaging in wishful thinking, I think it's important we face our fears first and then rewrite them. And keep doing it over and over again, because, as I said, living in a certain pattern, it can't be rewritten at once. You need to practice over and over again. And if you need help with clearing those deeper energies, those blocks at the soul level, those patterns, that are very deep in your energetic makeup, that maybe come from past lives and so on, then you're always welcome to contact me and connect for a session or a chat. But with this, I thank you for listening. And until next time, namaste.